Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to the WCBL and everybody who helped invite me up here today. I'm Andy Hunt, as Seth mentioned. I'm with the Hershey Company. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about augmented reality. One of the things, just a quick coverage here for what the things we're going to talk about today. So a little bit of background to set the context. What I never like to do when I'm talking about these types of things is make an assumption that everybody understands the same sort of vocabulary, places that I'm coming from. So I just want to make sure that I'm talking about terms and ideas and things and understanding that we're all talking the same language moving forward. Why the Hershey Company is looking into augmented reality. When I've had conversations with other folks outside of the context of presenting, I always get that curious question. Why is a candy company looking at augmented reality? Which is, I think, a logical question. What we're doing in the space, and then how we're doing the work that we're doing. And again, like I said, I don't want to make any assumptions about what people know or don't know about the Hershey Company. We are located in idyllic South Central Pennsylvania, in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We are a large candy and confection manufacturer, one of the largest in the world. Probably, if you're from the States, I'm going to assume you probably have encountered one of our products at one time or another. We have about, I think that slide is just a slightly dated, I think we have about 90 brands right now. We are expanding our portfolio out from the traditional stuff that you might be familiar with, Reese's, Twizzlers, Kit Kats here in the States, Hershey bars, into more of the savory snacking types of things with Skinny Pop, Pirate's Booty, and most recently Dots Pretzels, things like that. One of the things that we're very, very proud of is our relationship and our work that we do with Milton Hershey School there in Central Pennsylvania. It is a school of middle grade as well as up through high school kids for underprivileged kids. We do a lot of work with them. It's founded by our founder, Milton Hershey, and his wife, Catherine Hershey. I'll give you a little bit of trivia here to go with this as well. There is such a thing as the Hershey 10. It happens to everybody. It happens to most everybody. It happened to me. What happens is, you get access to a lot of that candy. You get, especially because we've got candy bowls located everywhere. And by the way, I brought my own candy bowl. It's sitting right there if you haven't seen it yet. So it's a portfolio of our caramel products. You tend to, it's awesome. You tend to try to snack a lot, and you eventually wind up work it off. We have a very, very nice gym on site. My personal favorite is the Reese's Take 5 product. It's fantastic, and there's some Take 5s out there. I just found this out over in the UK. It's actually called Reese's Overload. If anybody would happen to know why, I haven't talked to the brand team as to why Take 5 didn't translate it over there to Overload. It's a mystery to me. That aside, the thing that I want to take away from this slide is this idea of making more moments of goodness. This is the sort of the mantra, if you will, by which we try to operate and by we try to interact with everybody who encounters the Hershey brand, whether or not it's, you're one of our retail customer partners, whether or not you're a consumer buyer of one of our products, or whether you're, sitting in an audience listening to someone from the Hershey Company speaking about the work that we're doing. Making more moments of goodness is something that we are central to everything that we do. I am on what's called our retail shopper experience team. That is part of the commercial part of the organization. What we do is we serve as a consultative partner to our retail partners being club stores, grocery stores, convenience stores, as well as our internal sales teams, on issues, trends, do a little bit of forecasting in terms of what's happening in the retail shopper spaces when our consumers and our retail partners are out there doing the things that they're doing. If you think about especially the past, couple, 3 years, and like everybody else, a lot of stuff has changed. If you consider what the shopping experiences have changed as we've gone from a lot of brick and mortar to these very, very different types of purchasing modalities, buy online, pick up in store, especially with things like your Amazons where they're putting out things like just the pick up and go. What are those retail experiences? What's happening in those types of things? What are the actual shelf conditions? As you know, there are some supply chain issues going on right now. So how do we understand what is happening actually in store right now to understand what shoppers and our retail partners are experiencing as they have to deal with some of those things? Checkout experience, I talked about that just a little bit. Shoppers are going to shop what is most convenient for them. So how do we make sure that all their shopping experiences are as convenient as they could possibly be? And what does a total store plan look like to address the correct mix of categories and everything that's in the store? We want to make sure that we are the best partner as category leaders for sweets and confections. We want to be the best partner that we can with our retail partners to guide and help and shape the entire approaches that they are taking for retail. I myself, my background, I've changed careers 3 times. I started out as an engineer, mechanical engineer. By degree, that's what I am. I started out at a research and development capacity, working at a little lab down in South Florida. I transitioned into the advertising business. It's just a natural transition, right? Engineering into advertising, where I was a creative director there for a number of years. I've carved out a little R&D niche for me there within that space, where I was doing a lot of work with different realities, virtual reality and augmented reality primarily. I started doing some work with natural language processing and things like that, which led me into being a chocolate maker. I'm not technically a chocolate maker. I work in a space called non-product digital innovation. If you're in the food and beverage, the CPG and the food and beverage space, then I have to make that delineation, because when you talk about innovation in that space, you're generally talking about the types of folks that do stuff that's related to the product in and of itself. I'm not the guy who is putting everything into Reese's cups. I'm not the guy who is putting pretzels into Reese's cups. I'm not the guy who's putting potato chips into Reese's cups. What I am is the guy who's helping work with our commercial and our sales teams talk about these issues of retail shopper experiences. The one thing that I want to point out on this, in addition to my time in factory, time on the farm, some volunteer work through the Hershey Company and doing augmented reality, is this picture here in the bottom corner right there. That old guy that I'm with right there is my grandfather. He just turned 95 last month. He served in World War II on a minesweeper in the South Pacific. I've been with the Hershey Company for about 4 years now. We didn't talk about his time in World War II very much, but when I joined the Hershey Company, he told me a fascinating story about they used to get our Hershey chocolate rations aboard ship. For those of you who don't know, we've worked with the military for a very long time. And our military product that we have supplied to them from time to time is not our traditional 1.5 ounce milk chocolate bar. It is engineered and innovative for the fact that it is meant to withstand these very high heat, very odd conditions. The contract that the military gave us said that these chocolate bars are meant to provide nutrition. They're very caloric dense, and they were designed to taste like baked potatoes. He told me a story about they used to get these bars on ship, and what they used to do, because they were so dense, they used to take them down to the shop in the ship and get at them with screwdrivers and hammers. That's how they used to break them and enjoy them. So it was a wonderful experience for me to be able to have that conversation with him about that, about his experience with our company. That's to put a fine point on it. That's what making moments of goodness is all about. That's a tangible example there of what that sort of means, very personal to me. So, as I mentioned with my background, all those different things that I do, at the end of the day, I like to tell people I build things. I was having a fantastic conversation with a senior leader in engineering last week it was, and not to turn this into too much of a PG-13 conference, he and I wanted to have shirts made that says, "We design and build shit," because that's what we do in our capacity there. We're not working, as I said, we're not working directly on products. He likes to just tell people he builds chocolate factories. I just tell people I build shit. But it's important for us to be able to do these things in-house from our perspective, so that we can really understand some fundamental things that are going to affect the balance of the rest of the company. And the case in point to what we're working on here is like, where will shopping happen? That's a cute little example of me doing some stuff in augmented reality. Because as you talk about these types of things, these new types of realities, what is shopping going to look like when we have these spaces to work in? A lot of the examples that you see right now are very sort of one-to-one analogous. At least from the stuff that I've seen, you see people put on a headset, either virtual reality or augmented reality, and it's a one-to-one thing where you see these digital avatars of people going to stores and picking up a box of candy and putting it in their car and stuff like that. Okay, I get it, but is that really how people are going to be doing shopping in those spaces? How will we be shopping? We've talked about it just a little bit here in this conference today. Voice is going to be a real big thing. People are going to be shopping on voice. We've seen Amazon try to do some of these things before in the past. What does that really mean to be shopping with this different modality than we are doing, again, through voice and things like that? And then who will be shopping? Again, we've talked about this a little bit today in terms of these digital assistants that we are interacting with. But what does it mean when maybe it is a real robotic digital assistant doing things like that? We've taken a look at what it means to have robots going up and down stores and robots assisting and doing things. And so what does it mean for actually having to interact with those physical elements and do shopping, things like that. Has anybody been, get your shoulders ready because I'm gonna start asking some questions. Does anybody have any grocery stores that they go to where they see the robots going up and down the stores, doing shelf scanning, taking pictures? Anybody? Nobody's seen those yet? We've got them. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm not alone here. We've got them up in the We've got them up in the Northeast, and I know there's a number of folks that are doing that where they've got robots right now. They're not the they're not the humanistic looking robots there, but they're robots that go up and down store shelves that do things like floor scanning, looking for spills, and take photographs down the aisle so that you can understand, do things like real shelf conditions. What does it mean when shoppers are going to be going up there and they have to interact and work around those types of things? So we're looking at a number of these things like that. What I want to talk about right now is the way that we are exploring some of these things. I'm going to believe probably everybody's heard about this idea of an MVP, a minimum viable product. If you've been working with technology for a while, you've talked about that. I've tried to be a little clever, turn it on its head just a little bit, and thinking back to how we are approaching these technologies, back to who we are as a company, who we are as Hershey. I want to consider what we do to build moments of goodness products. What is that product that we can design and build using technology to deliver that moment of goodness? And that can happen across all sorts of different capacities and types of things. It can happen whether or not you're, we're getting towards s'more seasons here, so whether or not you're enjoying s'mores in the backyard with your family, whether you're on the factory floor. A lot of the work that we do in the space that I also get to work with, fortunately, is work with some of our internal teams. So whether or not you're on the factory floor, when somebody's getting a job done, what is the best, easiest, smartest, most friction-free? Can we even consider making a job fun? Can we even consider making a job more enjoyable? How can we create that sort of level of goodness for our internal teams? And again, irrespective of context, just at the end of the day, are we be able to create some goodness for somebody when we're building out some of this technology work that we're doing? We tend to think about working, at least within the team that I work with. As I mentioned, we work both internally and externally. We tend to think of these three pillars of company, customer, and consumer. Consumer is an interesting one just a little bit, because if you think about when you put a fine point on something, the consumer of the product isn't always the buyer. So consumer is an interesting thing here. If you think about who does the shopping maybe at home, and then maybe who does the eating of the chocolate at home, it's not always the same. I know in my house, I happen to be the one who both consumes and buys. That's just me. But we do try to tend to think about working across these three pillars of constituencies. And then what we try to do then is figure out, okay, if we are helping out one of these constituencies, maybe in the company or the consumer or the customer space, what have we learned here that we can apply to move across everybody else to sort of extract some value of volume out of moving across those types of things? Because quite honestly, with very, very rare instances, we have found that there is a technology that's only going to work in one narrow band of application towards the company. Now, the use cases are going to vary a lot, but there's some enablings that go on at the bottom line. They're going to lift all boats, as it were. I want to hammer home the point that what we are is a confection and chocolate making company. We are not a technology company. So what I've got to share with you right now is, simply a guy who happens to work at the Hershey company who does a lot of work with augmented reality, whose skills, by the way, in augmented reality are second best only to his Photoshop skills. What I don't have is the be all end all book on how to be incredibly famous, incredibly powerful, incredibly rich through augmented reality. I will talk about augmented reality ad nauseum to anybody who wants to listen to it, but I don't have all the answers, even though I do have, as I said, fantastic Photoshop skills. Now, what I don't want to do again real quickly is understand that, or assume that everybody understands what I'm talking about. So I do have a quick question. Has anybody heard or is anybody familiar with the term spatial computing? Again, one guy right here. Okay, that's fine. Again, that's why I asked the question, because I don't want to jump right into that. Spatial computing is this overarching sort of term that encompasses a lot of different technologies, but it's a general idea that you are going to have these human-computer interfaces, or these human data interchanges that are going to happen in three-dimensional spaces no matter where you are. When we were talking about some of the building IoT stuff this morning, I heard a lot of corollary types of things there in terms of when you're going into a building and the building is acting and reacting and being proactive when you go into that space. There are some elements here that go on to that as well. We can talk about VR, AR glasses, holographic displays. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The interaction technology as well, handheld controllers. If you've done VR before, by and large you have to have these controllers in your hands. There's some hand and body tracking. Sometimes these are, to have all of this doesn't mean you have to do spatial computing. Spatial computing can use each one of these elements a little bit differently. Haptics, I don't know if anybody's familiar with haptics or not, but it's the idea that, when you tap your iPhone for certain things, you get a little bump back or bump back. There's some amazing work going on in haptics in terms of moving around with virtual reality and things. Voice control is a real fun one because it touches on some of the stuff that we heard earlier today. If we're talking about natural language processing, we've seen a lot of the written word applied to AI and natural language processing. Voice control requires natural language processing when it is spoken. I'm going to assume that everybody is familiar with Siri, Google Assistant, Alexa, things like that. It's a lot of those things. The way that spatial computing is going to work in the future, the way that you're going to interact with stuff, is going to be very different in terms of being able to talk to your computing devices in a much more intelligent way that we can do that right now. You're going to be poking at them. You're going to be grabbing things. All that stuff fancy stuff that you see in Iron Man. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. It's very prescient, quite honestly. And the user experience design is just a critical component of it all. We've talked about a variety of things today when we've been talking about the importance of designing good experiences with voice or with the human spoken word back and forth when you're talking to computers, when you're talking with data, not just that, when you're talking with data and you're talking with computers, making sure those experiences are okay. And it's going to just get more amplified as you're working in a large, volumetric area. I don't know if anybody has seen this video. It's called Hyper Reality. It's about a 6-minute video. I was put out by somebody in, I apologize, it was either in Taiwan or in Mexico, I think somewhere. It's an interesting video. If nothing else, I'm not going to play the full 6 minutes because it is the most frightening example to me of what the metaverse could be. You cannot talk about augmented reality, virtual reality, spatial computing without having to mention that dreaded M word. I am a bit of an old man sitting on a rocking chair on the front porch, shaking my fist at clouds when I hear terms of the metaverse. I'm unapologetically skeptical of everything that I've heard about it, but it doesn't discount the fact that I've got to be aware that there's a lot of money and a lot of brains that are being thrown at it. So despite my own skepticism, that it's worth paying attention to for nothing else. That again, there's the potential there for things that are happening in that. Now, again, this is a wildly extreme example of what this extreme overlay of digital information is with visuals could wind up being. But we are heading towards some kind of future where it is going to be on some spectrum of being able to change your visuals, change what you're going to be seeing around you. And here's where we are started with some of these technologies right now. Despite where we might think the metaverse might be headed, there's a lot of attention being thrown as at least the enabling technologies that go into it. If we take a look at where we are now with the so-called Web 2 stuff right now, we're all very, very familiar with the PCs, consoles, and mobile stuff, and these other elements here are the things that we're looking at right now within this area of spatial computing, virtual reality, augmented reality. BCI, brain-computer interfaces. I don't know if you've heard that term or familiar with that term. You may have heard it in the popular culture, if nothing else, because there's a certain spaceman who's obsessed with electric cars and getting into space, has created this thing called the Neuralink. That's basically what BCI is all about. So again, these other alternate computing platforms that are going to affect the way that we are going to be interacting with data and other things in three-dimensional spaces. This is the only slide that I have that has any stats on it, so you don't have to worry about anything else. It's all going to be fun slides and nonsense from here on out. It's clear that nobody can argue that the mobile phone hasn't won the computing war. No, I think, at least within the Hershey company, I recently saw the list of computers that we can get in, and there's a desktop on there somewhere. Nobody's getting desktops anymore. It's all migrating to laptops and phones. But phones are where it's the space in which we all operate. It's the space in which we all talk to, see our information, get our information. This slide is up here, if nothing else, to demonstrate just how pervasive mobile computing is now. When you think about where it came from, we can argue when mobile computing began, but I think it's hard not to consider 2007 when the iPhone came out. That's what sort of tipped the balance to go to that. The important thing to remember as well is remember when the iPhone came out in 2007, it was 2G and there was no App Store. That's an important point to make. So when we start looking at some of these other spatial computing devices, remember where the iPhone started, to remember where these things are going to be coming from, so that you understand the context and the room to grow that's going to be going from. The stat to me, which I find somewhat interesting here, is the one on the bottom. 71% of people sleep within an arm's reach of their cell phone. Anybody familiar with that old folk tale that says you're never more than 6 feet away from a spider? Has anybody else ever heard that thing before? Before I see a couple of people nodding. Spiders got nothing on mobile phones. 71% sleep within an arm's reach. That's a I do it, I know, but to me that's a fascinating thing. So people are very, oh boy, I got to get moving. People are very, very aware of what mobile computing is. As I mentioned, there's this spectrum right now of augmented reality devices. These are some of the head-mounted augmented reality devices we can take a look at right now. We have a lot of experience with the Hershey Company with the HoloLens too, but there's a huge portfolio. When we talk about expanding that out towards just volumetric computing, you can buy. There are commercially available swim goggles right now that you can purchase, as well as this is a fascinatingly interesting display. It's a desktop holographic display. I just saw a new version of that out that's, I think, 65 inches out now that actually looks like it's a three-dimensional visual. It's amazing. While nothing came out about Apple's AR stuff at the Worldwide Developers Conference earlier this week, they are actively doing stuff with augmented reality, and we know so Apple goes, so the rest of the industry goes. We know Meta, we know Google, they're all working on stuff. And then what's really, really interesting as well is that as opposed to when we get away from form factors like this, there's already people working on looking at contact lenses. There's a company called Mojo that's working on contact lens solutions. It's in prototype right now, exactly. They've got it in prototype. It's for health. It's small scale is the best I can tell you. I would have that's a forecast. I would have to. I'm not sure. Again, it's going to be a progressive type of thing. I think it's really interesting. I'd say within 5 years. My guess, finger to the wind. 5 years, we're going to see a commercially available contact lens with augmented reality. Real quickly, right here, we've only have a few moments left. What it has enabled us to do with our work within spatial computing, it has enabled us to take a look at different collaboration modalities. The gentleman on the left is our senior vice president for engineering, looking at a demonstration of an augmented reality model that we placed at the home office there. Off to the right is one of our engineers at a remote facility looking at that same model. Not at the same time. I don't want to mischaracterize it, but they're both looking at the same model, just at different time periods. This is actually going to be in the facility where it's actually going to be located. I love, if you haven't done it yet, get people in a headset. Has anybody tried an augmented reality headset? I've got a couple people here. It is a fascinating experience to actually have it on and have one done well. Nothing brings out everybody else with their cell phones and seeing a colleague with a headset on, taking lots of pictures. This is just real quickly, just a sample real quickly of some of the content that we're doing. This is a highly de-featured model from one of our manufacturing lines. If you don't mind, I won't mention what it is, but it's so de-featured you wouldn't even be able to tell. This is putting it on my desk in what's called dollhouse view. I just dropped it on my desk to give you an example of just some little fun ways that you can do these highly complex pieces of equipment. Get through this real quick. What I want to do is talk real quickly about this. Is a fly-through video, a 3D fly-through video of a new store plan that we're working on. It's a generic, if you will, agnostic floor plan. What we have done is take some of those enabling technologies that I talked about earlier that we're working on for the enterprise, for the engineering space, port it over here to the work that we're looking at within the commercial space, and do some very similar types of things. This is going to morph into similar thing that we just saw a moment ago, which is a very small dollhouse sort of feature of the front of store for that. So again, the idea is that we don't take a look at a technology for the idea that is going to be used for one single use case. We try to make sure that when we consider these types of things, we consider a wide breadth of them. So while the use case might be very separate, the fundamental underlying technologies are very, very similar. This is the front of store. I hope you can make that out, but that is the queuing line, the registers, and then the front door. That's on my desk. That's on my table at home, what I like to call Hershey Lab South. Real quickly, we took some of those principles and things that we took a look at, applied them towards the way that we interact with our retail partners. This is a very traditional way that we would go out and represent a merchandising unit. This is on a pallet, and you probably have seen this on a grocery store shelf. This is traditionally how we would go up and sell and talk to the store KDM, key decision maker, and say, look, this is going to be our s'mores campaign. How many of these do you want to buy? How many do you want to put on the floor? We're able then to take some of the stuff that we've been learning before, migrate that into this new three-dimensional type of space. So now I don't know if, for anybody who's not aware, you could actually drop 3D models into PowerPoint, which is all I've done here. So now you give this idea that you can present a little bit more perspective. It's a much more engaging conversation, and then you can take it into augmented reality. So now we can see it actually on the floor. So when you're talking with a department manager or a store manager, you can show it to them on the floor, a very highly featured, very highly detailed, very physically accurate model of this. What we're doing is not just being able to demonstrate what this product is and how it's going to look on the floor. We're actually creating a pretty magical experience, quite honestly, between our retail sales reps and the decision makers that they're having right now. We're giving our retail sales reps the ability to become magicians. I mean, really, they're creating something that is not there and do it in a way that just hasn't been possible before. We're allowing them to create these remarkable experiences that they can have with the decision makers in the store, and they get to collaborate in a whole completely different way. It's been just wonderful feedback on that. And then real quickly, what we've been doing is, because we aren't necessarily a technology place, we are an augmented reality shop. What we've been doing is, again, leaning into the idea that we've been doing, that I mentioned before. We're trying to bring everybody together, look for commonalities. We've created what we're calling our spatial computing community of practice. It's represented on a number of different levels, from engineering, retail, human resources, internal R&D, sales, to do all these variety of things. Here, let me quickly run through this. As I said, I don't exactly know what the future of AR is going to look like, but what we do believe, by our investing in these technologies ourselves, is going to enable us to have these fantastic conversations internally about these types of things. I don't know if all of you all or anything remotely like me, you get inundated with emails right and left from one marketing house to another, from another marketing house, from another vendor that says, hey, have you heard about augmented reality? Have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? It's wonderful, it's new. We can solve all your problems in 5 easy steps or less, and we're going to make you famous for doing this. By doing this work ourselves internally, we've been able to sort of cut through some of that nonsense, be able to have a little more intelligent conversations with some of those folks, weed the wheat from the chaff just a little bit easier. And then in summary, real quick, we are a snacking convection company looking to make meaningful connections at the end of the day. We are not looking at these technologies willy-nilly. We are always keeping that North Star of making moments of goodness front and center to everything that we do. We really do believe that there is a huge, huge future for augmented reality. I don't know that people are not necessarily going to be buying a 2-cup of Reese's in augmented reality anytime soon, but when they do interact with the Reese's 2-cup or the Reese's brand in some fashion in an alternate reality, we want to make sure that that is a meaningful connection for them, and we're doing it across the company, and that is it. Did I run over? You gave me 5 like 20 minutes ago.
That's okay. Minute or two. Very good. Excellent. Thank you so much. We'll take a question or two, even though we're a little minute or two behind. But any thoughts, any questions? It was very interesting. Yes, please. Yeah, microphone, please.
Oh,
yes,
thank you.
When your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Brad Laird. Hi.
Right, of course. Yes.
Hi. I've never seen someone go from an engineering role to creative director, and I can imagine that makes you really well-rounded. I also would wonder, what was that
peanut butter and chocolate.
like? Go ahead.
Sorry, like peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah.
You gave me that one, sorry.
But were there any challenges with that? Because I imagine when you got through that process, you just had a good view of the whole thing, but I see that a lot of times we operate in silos.
I think when I put those 3 sort of elements to who I am, my personality there, The last one was endlessly curious. That's the most important thing. And I hope that manifested itself through the thing. It's that curiosity, which I think has helped us specifically, and is what I would encourage to you. And I think it was, there's so many tools, so many ways for you to get started yourselves. I think Alex talked about it, and I was taking some thoughts about how am I going to get started with quantum computing now. I hope if nothing else, I can borrow into Alex's theme. He's not here, but there is really ample opportunity for anybody who wants to get started in spatial computing, and particularly with augmented reality, to get started now and try to do some stuff. If anybody wants to have a conversation about it, I'm happy to. I'm back there.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you again. Terrific.